Today we're going to look at what it takes to set up a podcast. So you may have your podcast set up, you may have a feed set up, you may be hosting it somewhere that helps you distribute it to different places like Apple or Spotify or whatever. But a lot of podcasters use websites to build their own audience. So on those other tools, you have your subscribers and they can get your new podcast episodes through those platforms, which is great. You have no way to necessarily reach those subscribers. You don't have a way to let them know about other projects you're doing. You don't have a way to let them know about other content you have. You can't engage with them directly. So a lot of podcasters do different types of things to try to build their own community out that they can reach and engage with more often. And a lot of times, sometimes podcasters just want to connect with those people in the first place. It's why they start their podcast or start blogging or whatever. So on WordPress.com, there is a way to actually host it through WordPress or through WordPress.com, or you can even just embed and display your podcast from any other place as long as you have a feed. So I want to walk through that process real quick. I've actually been joking around with my buddy about starting one. We write these songs about Star Wars and either Star Wars theories or things that happen to the characters or plot points or whatever. And we were talking about actually turning them into podcast episodes and like discussion instead, because sometimes that's what the funny part is, or that's what the most interesting perspective is like all the discussion and thinking that goes on behind it. And lots of people like Star Wars, so we figured it wouldn't be a bad thing to dive into. So I'm going to log in real quick. I'm in my dashboard. You can see I did go to WP admin instead of WordPress.com and then selecting my site. It's not a big deal either way. You can still get to the same section. So if you want to host your podcast with WordPress.com, meaning you just want it to live, like you don't have a podcast yet, maybe you have a site or maybe you set up a new site for your podcast, you can actually host it with us. So, and we do have a really cool docs page that I have up. That's why you see my eyes probably moving. I have our documentation up because I couldn't remember all the different details, like the Anchor FM integration and all these things too. So we'll put that link in the description of the video so you can check it out later. It's a really thorough walkthrough. We do have a podcasting course. A good friend of mine, Richard, leads it. He's a great public speaker. He's very smart when it comes to podcasting strategy. If you check out WPcourses.com, it is free. And he goes out of his way to make sure everybody is onboarded and gets their questions answered and really takes advantage of it. So you should definitely check that out, WPcourses.com. Okay, so we're going to go under settings, and it's actually under writing. So if I go over here and I go to settings in the dashboard, and I'm going to go under writing, we're going to just have to scroll down a little bit, I believe. And if you haven't gone through settings and writing on your site, like a lot of people never look at this, on WordPress.com, there's a lot of tools and features kind of hidden back here, like infinite scroll and things like that. So make sure you peek at this from time every now and then, because there are some cool things back here for you. So let me find it. Podcasting. So right here in the middle of the page, I'm going to go to setup. And so it's going to let me choose a category, essentially. And that means anytime you publish this new post to that category, that's going to be your podcast, and that's going to trigger kind of distribution on, or for us. It'll add that item to your podcast feed, which is what you'll submit to these other platforms, and then they'll automatically post your new episode. So I'm just going to say uncategorized for now, because I don't actually have any content ready. I'm just going through this for practice sake. You can set a cover for the podcast, you can set your description and a lot of the information, topics and things like that. This is all information that the distributors will pull in to share information about your podcast on their platform. So Pocket Casts, you kind of have a page. Spotify, you have a page about your podcast and the information there. So that's all there. And then I'd hit save settings, and then it'd be good to go. Then when I actually want to create an episode for my podcast, oops, I clicked the wrong thing. I'm going to just go to a post like I normally would for creating any kind of content. And what I'm going to actually do is, we'll say it's like episode 1, Actually, you know what? I was listening to that song the other day and thinking about it. So we'll go with Ballad of Greedo. And what you'd actually do is upload either an audio file or a video file. So if you recorded your podcast as a video, you can do a video file. If you recorded it as an audio file or edited it as an audio file, you can do that. And so you're going to upload that file here. And then when you go to publish it, so you can add the file, you can add your transcript if you have one as text down here. You can even just say that it's the transcript right here. And then, so when you go back to your post settings, you're going to go to that category, click uncategorize, because that's what essentially we just set in the document, right? We said we want that to be the category that triggers the podcast piece. And then I think that's it. Then you would publish your post. The title for this, so this right here, that gets distributed to Pocket Cast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and any other ones that you have it submitted to. Assign the post to the podcast category. Yep, that's what we set up in settings and writing. And then you can add an excerpt here to describe the specific episode. It'll auto-generate one from the post content if you have a transcript there, but if you want an excerpt or a description for your episode and that's what it's going to show on the different platforms, it's probably better for you to just write one than this thing trying to pull the first words in from your content, especially if you're not putting a transcript in there. So that's pretty straightforward. The other thing you can do if you're not hosting your podcast with us is you can add episodes from any podcast or your podcast, or feature a single episode by using the podcast block. So there's a Pocket Cast embed block. So if you haven't gone to Pocket Cast, it's pretty cool. It is a great way to discover podcasts that you will probably like based on what you usually listen to. So I'm not logged in right now, and I'm not going to take our time to do that, but you can grab one URL from there and you can embed it here. That's all it's asking for, which is pretty neat. That has some cool features to it. There's also a normal podcast player that we have, which is kind of neat. And I can grab an example feed real quick and drop it in here. I'll use, my buddy has one called Under the Covers, which is about cover songs. So it's kind of like hyper specific, but it will work for now. Let me just grab it in a different window. Okay, got it. He uses Libsyn, which I hear is a good platform. It's worth calling out. There's also an Anchor FM integration with WordPress.com. And that really focuses on Spotify, but Anchor is a really solid platform, and there's kind of back and forth between them, which is cool. So by default, it shows you kind of several episodes. The cool thing about this player, I thought, is that there's a number of customizations you could do. So if you just want to feature one, you can do that, which is nice. You can choose whether or not you want the cover art in there. I love it. I don't like the description always, if I depending on where I'm putting it. In a post like this, I probably would. If I was putting it on the home page or featuring it, I probably wouldn't. The other thing I can do is play with the color settings for it. Like if I want to make it dark like the rest of my site, I can do that. Looks like that black is even darker than my background, which is fine. And secondary color, we'll just go with white. I don't know where exactly that's used. That's good. We got Star Wars yellow, which is actually called banana yellow, if you haven't heard that before. So that's kind of like, I like how that looks. You can also make it full width if you want. That looks kind of weird to me. Wide width is okay. And you can choose a little animation for where it comes in. And it gives you a preview of the animation, which is kind of neat too, I think. And that's kind of a Star Warsy effect, so I like that. So this is cool. I think you can blog about your favorite podcasts. You can share your favorite specific episode, there's this actual episode search filter in here. So if you want to choose a specific one, you can do that. You can almost just kind of make a page of your favorite episodes from different podcasts by just using that podcast player block, which is cool. We're doing a number of things to make it more fun and easier, I guess. I think this is pretty easy, but we're coming up with some cool things for podcasters, so keep an eye out in the future for that. But if you have a podcast, you want to share it. If you like podcasts, you want to share them. Obviously, you can embed from other places too. Like if you let me grab an episode from Spotify quick. This show cracks me up. I'll just grab one. If you haven't ever listened to this, it's a pretty funny podcast of two guys that dive into kind of these like hokey, not even conspiracy, but paranormal stories and things like that. And they do good research on it, but they get derailed a lot. So I'm just going to copy the episode link. And if you didn't know already, if you have the URL pasted, the embed just kind of happens naturally if it's recognized. So there's a Spotify player right there. So you have the podcast player thing that you can do, the podcast player block, I should say. That works pretty well. You can also embed from Spotify just by pasting the link, or you can embed from Pocket Cast as well, just by pasting the link. The Spotify one has some features to it, not a ton. Like you can't really customize that as well, but it tends to look good no matter what. And same thing with the Pocket Cast one. So check those things out. Podcasts, even if you're not a podcaster, if you listen to podcasts or exploring, it's an easy content idea. Instead of having to write out everything for a blog post, you can share a podcast and write something about that. You can share the transcript, you can share your favorite quotes and things like that. So consider it as a format. Discussions are always good content and brings a little bit of the human touch back to the web. Let us know what you think, or if you have any questions or features that you'd like to see or anything like that in the comments, and make sure to subscribe to the channel.